I'd like to call this meeting of the Dalton Select Board to order, please. It's a special Select Board meeting tonight, and it's going to be interviews for the future Police Chief of Dalton. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General 30 and 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Select Board will be conducted via remote participation. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch in the open session portion of the meeting may do so by viewing on Dalton Community Cable TV, channel 1301, or via the Zoom link on our agenda. Okay, all those who are able, can we stand up for the pledge? And Mr. Boyle, would you lead us in a pledge, please?
Sure, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
with
God,
liberty and
indivisible,
justice for all.
Justice for all.
Well, welcome everyone. We're finally here. Okay. Brittany, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Robert Bishop.
Here.
Joseph Diver.
Here.
John Boyle.
Here.
And Dan Esco.
Here.
Mark is excused.
So is Sandy.
Yes. Okay, first thing on the docket here we have tonight, we're going to have a small presentation from Wayne Sampson, the Public Safety Consultants. He will do an outline of the progress for the Chief's search. Wayne, it's okay, I'll turn it over to you right now.
Thank you. My name is Wayne Sampson. I'm with Public Safety Consultants. We've been providing consulting for over 15 years to police and fire departments in Massachusetts. We've worked in over 125 communities, and we've done, I'd say, approximately 50 of these police search assessment type of promotional situations. We have a standard format that we have incorporated throughout the years that we use. We provide the community with that, and one of the very important parts is we don't make a decision. The community always makes the decision, which is in the best interest of your residents and your public safety department, police department in this case. So in this case, we worked with a citizen group appointed by the board. They were very engaged. They were very thoughtful. They used a great deal of insight. They were very concerned about the community standard, and we like to see that. We went through, we started out with approximately 24 applications. We went through all of those resumes and pared that down to approximately 8 that we would send out written questions to get a sense of what their views were on different items. After reviewing those written questions, the board then selected 6 people to bring in for interviews. And as a result of the interviews, they then selected 4 people to go forward through a formal assessment center process where we bring in a team of subject matter experts and put them through realistic, live, role-playing situations within the skills, knowledge, and abilities required by a police chief. What was interesting in this case, even though we have some standard scenarios, in my listening to the members of the selection committee, I heard them discussing issues both in the community and within the police department that would be of legitimate concern to a person who develops these exercises. And I was able to incorporate all of the issues that almost all the issues that they raised during our interviews. So it was a very realistic assessment, and the exercises were specifically designed to meet the conditions both within your community and within the police department. So we believe that it was a very valid exercise. You ended up with 3 fine candidates. They all fell within the well-qualified scoring matrix that we have. And that's what you ended up with 3 candidates tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions if somebody has a question about the process. Joe, did I hit the main topics?
You did, Wayne. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone have a question for Wayne?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, John.
In our prep material, is that scoring matrix included in our material tonight?
I believe that you did get that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In the report, you get the scoring matrix relative to the individual exercises that they had, and you get their total average score. Now, I want to make sure I'm very careful here. The town is required not to divulge any scores in public, so I can't discuss any particular scores. But you were given a copy of each candidate and where they fell for each exercise, sir.
Yes, I did. But yeah, I was asking about the scores. So this actual scores that each candidate was judged on are not available to us.
I'm not sure what you're asking, sir.
The actual scores.
You have the scores on what they got on each exercise.
On each exercise.
Yes.
But there's other scores we don't have.
No, there's only the scores within the chief assessment report, John, which is what I submitted to the board.
Mm-hmm.
You see the score in each exercise for each
Yes.
candidate, and then their overall rank, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Mr. Sampson was saying is that we can't publicly talk about the scores themselves. So that is, we have to treat those confidential.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? All right, Joe, why don't you introduce your first candidate here, please?
Yeah, and just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I do want to say thank you to Mr. Sampson for both, him and the team that he brought forward for the assessment program and the guidance he provided the committee throughout the whole process. Extremely professional, well knowledgeable, and it was a great investment with the support of our finance committee and our town manager to leverage those services. So it was quite helpful. So again, thank you, Mr. Sampson, for that great guidance. And for the select board, I'd like to introduce our first candidate, Detective Sergeant Jamie Berger from the town of Wayland. Hi, Jamie. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Good, good. Jamie, just to let you know, the structure of this is that all the candidates received the questions in advance, so you can take a look at those questions, similar to what we did with our town manager. And each select board member has been assigned certain questions to ask through that document. And so we'll step through that with the committee. So over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Jamie, my name is Bob Bishop. I'm the current chair of the Select Board, and I'm going to ask you questions about the interest in Dalton, your leadership and communication styles, okay?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for applying. Please take 2 to 3 minutes for an opening statement.
Well, first of all, my name is Jamie Berger. I'm currently the Detective Sergeant for the Wayland Police Department in Wayland, Massachusetts. First of all, thank you for the Board of Selectmen for having me as a finalist for this position. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to actually become a police chief, starting as a police officer, then making my way up and as a police chief. If you ask me where I'd be in 20 years from when I first started, I would hope that I would be able to say a police chief. Again, thank you to the Police Chief Search Committee for allowing me the opportunity to go through the process, and to the Assessment Center as well as bringing me, up to where we are today. My name is Jamie Berger again. I'm a Wayland police officer and have been since 1993. In 1993, a little bit about me, my employment history. In 93 to 98, I was an auxiliary police officer with the town of Wayland. In 98, I got promoted. Well, I got hired as a full-time police officer, and just prior to that, in 1995 and 1996, I was a seasonal police officer for 2 seasons with the town of Provincetown, Massachusetts, which, as you might know or might not, is one of the probably most diverse communities, certainly within Massachusetts, but within the country as well. In '98, I was hired as a full-time officer. In 2006, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. In 2008, I took over the detective division as the detective division commander in the Wayland Police Department. We're an authorized strength of 24 officers, and from top to bottom, from chief down to patrolman. In my current position as the detective division commander, I'm responsible for detectives, youth services, and community policing within our agency and to the police department. My education, in 1989, I graduated from Wayland High School, and I went on to Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont, where I graduated with an associate's degree in law enforcement in 1991. At the time, Champlain College was a 2-year school. It's now a 4-year school. But when I graduated, it was a 2-year school when I transferred down to Castleton State University in Castleton, Vermont. And I graduated there in 1993 with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. From there, I came back to Massachusetts, started my working in security and criminal justice. And in 2011, I graduated from Westfield State University with a master's degree in criminal justice administration. In 2014, I was nominated and selected to go to the FBI National Academy, and I'm a member of the 255th session and graduated from there. And if you're not familiar with the FBI National Academy, it's an executive level leadership course, a 10-week course where you actually go away to Quantico, Virginia, the FBI Academy, and you train and get educated with approximately 250 of the other top 1% of law enforcement professionals, not only in the United States, but in the world. About approximately 10% of the classes from our international partners throughout the world, and the rest are made up of individuals from the United States. So that's a little bit about my educational and employment background, and I'm ready to move on if you are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what attracted you to the position of the Dalton Police Chief?
So having grown up in a smaller community and serving in a smaller community, I'm drawn to small town policing. I'm not looking to go work for a large community or a city or a larger town. I'm actually looking to establish myself as a police chief in a smaller community where I think I can make a bigger impact as a leader, living in, working with, and serving those that I live in and am around. I had a friend who lived in Dalton. I have another friend who grew up in Pittsfield, the next community over, and both speak very highly about the police department, community, and town. And that is what has drawn me to apply for the Dalton Police Chief position. In addition to that, I think that it would be a great partnership that if I was to be selected to become the next police chief, that I could bring 21st century policing and new community policing initiatives to reach all segments of the community of Dalton.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what qualities and experiences do you have that would convince us that you would be a good, successful police chief?
So I've been a police officer for approximately 28 years altogether, and a supervisor for 15 of those years. So I have a lot of experiences not only handling very important cases, but also the daily functions of a police department, administrative duties, budgets, things like that. So I think that as a chief, obviously you need to be able to handle everything from the small to the big. And I think that my job that over the last 28 years altogether has provided me the qualities and experiences that would make me a great candidate to be the police chief in Dalton. And as the police chief, it is what the most important thing is to have the community come first. And I think in my current position now, as the detective division commander, I make sure that those I supervise go the extra mile in investigations, dealing with people in all, whether they're victims or whether they're looking for any assistance from the police department. I think it's my duty and our duty as police officers to go the extra step, any chance we have, to help our community.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this next question has 4 parts to it. Okay, describe your general management style regarding these areas and provide examples of how you would collaborate with each. The department, town manager, and department heads.
So I think I can kind of answer this all in one, and I know there's different the select board, employee relations, and community relations. But I think the police department, we can't solve the problems of a town by itself, and we need to effectively work together with the town manager, select board employees, and the community to work cooperatively and openly with everybody to solve the town's problems. And so in doing that, I think that my management style, for one, is my management style actually for all, and it's to be open and honest and communicate well and to work with everybody cooperatively to, solve the town's issues, whether it be an individual or a budget issue or another, town department's issue that the police department can assist on.
Awesome, thank you, that's a great way of doing it. Okay, my last question. What core values do you rely on when facing difficult professional decisions on the job? And please give an example or two.
So, when facing a difficult decision, you have to take time to think about what is actually being decided upon. You need to remove emotions, and you need to gain input from others and base everything on what you do on a level of fairness and consistency. My personal feelings or others' personal feelings must be removed to ensure that the integrity of the organization is kept whole. And as far as having integrity and leadership and communication skills, honesty and empathy are of the utmost importance. An example of all of this, and we're in open session, so I can't go too much into it, but I can certainly give you a taste of an issue that I had. As a supervisor, I had worked an overtime shift, and I was looking at the computer in the cruiser, and I noticed that there were some websites that may have not have been appropriate to be viewing. So I brought that to the attention of the management, the administration of the department. An internal investigation was conducted, and subsequently that other officer, who happened to be a supervisor, was disciplined for that. And certainly you could probably guess that I was not the most popular person within the department at that point. But, when doing things and at a certain level, you have to do what's right. And whether or not people agree with you, what's doing right is what's important. And that's, a great example of what my core values are.
Thank you, very good. Okay, John, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Detective, my name is John Boyle. I'm a member of the Select Board. And I just have a few quick questions. The first one is an understatement at best. The town of Dalton has experienced significant change in the police department and town management in 2020. This includes the separation with the police chief, I should have said, termination of an officer, retirement of the town manager. What specific actions would you take to instill a cooperative effort in an agency experiencing significant change?
So thank you, Mr. Boyle. I appreciate your question. So I think this all boils down to ensuring effective communication throughout the police department. And in doing so, it's first and foremost that sustained communication will be the hallmark of my tenure as chief of police. I believe that communication is of the utmost importance, and I have worked for chiefs that have communicated well, and I have worked for chiefs that have not communicated well. And I have seen the difference firsthand. So I understand how important communication is. And in doing that, I will establish monthly staff meetings, quarterly supervisor meetings, and annual department meetings. And in doing that, I'm able to ensure that effective communication exists. I will attend roll calls with officers to remain informed of the operational daily issues. I will have an open door policy for not only the officers of the department, but the community at large, so that if anybody has any issues, the police chief is there for not only our officers, but for our community as well. And I will foster a positive environment. And I will do that by positive reinforcement, which starts at the top and goes down through the supervisors to the officers. It'll transcend through the organization and promote positivity throughout the organization. And I will show a real interest in our officers. And by doing so, they'll understand that I have them and their families in my mind, and hopefully they'll succeed as police officers. And by doing so, I will also understand what motivates them and to make them better police officers.
will you incorporate this command staff into your management team?
So the supervisors in Dalton are the most important management piece. So they are the boots on the ground. There's 3 sergeants there now, and it's up to them who kind of like dictate and motivate officers below them. And having knowledgeable supervisors that younger officers can look up to, learn from, and work with is extremely important. Their main responsibility is to coach and guide our younger officers, the patrol officers there. And it's necessary for their safety of the officers, and it's extremely important as them as managers to give, which gives their position legitimacy. So they're the ones who run the department in essence. Although as the chief, you're the leader. The patrol sergeants, the sergeants there are the ones who are the middle managers. They're most important pieces there. As the chief, certainly one of my most important things is to be a mentor, especially to younger officers, to the sergeants who want to be promoted, to the younger officers who want to be promoted. And I believe it's my duty, and I have seen how it was affected to me, who had a chief who mentored me, that to give me the training and the experience and the education to move on to the next step, to continue to move up and have the ability to become a police chief. And I believe that is my best opportunity to mentor through the younger officers and especially the supervisors.
Thank you. Please share with the board your experience in budget management.
So I've worked with the chief in the past on the detective division budget. I have a budget that I work with, and through the years I've managed within the annual budget. And I've also attended 3-day budget classes and in trainings for law enforcement budget.
Thank you. A quick question. How many, you mentioned that there's 24 people or members of the Wayland Police Department. How many did you supervise?
So my detective division, I have 4 altogether. Well, 4 plus me, so 5. So I have 3 detectives, a youth officer, and myself. And so at one point there was 5 plus me, and now we've reduced 1. So I supervise on a daily basis 4 plus me.
Mm-hmm. And you prepared the budget for your division, or your part of the department?
Right, so the chief prepares the budget, obviously, but I have worked with the chief in the past on the detective division budget and making sure that I stay within the confines of the annual budget, sure.
Good. And one quick final question.
Sure.
If you were the selectee of the board, would you be prepared to move to the Dalton area?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I've already looked online at certain houses. I've taken that step, and I've talked with friends that are still out that way. So I know certain areas of the town that I would like to be in. But obviously, if you know the town, then there's not a lot of real estate out there right now. But I've certainly been looking, and I look every day actually.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
very thorough.
Okay, you all set, John?
Yes. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Dan, you're up.
Thank you, Detective Berger, for your time tonight. My questions are going to be focused on community policing and police reform. From your perspective, what is the role of the chief of police in our community?
So thank you for your questions. This is a critical time in law enforcement. And at this critical time, as the chief of police, one of the most important thing, or if not the most important thing as the chief I need to do is listen to the community. I need to be able to understand what they need, what they want in their police department, and I need to align our agency to serve our community better. So whatever they want, again, within reason, I'm here to work with them and make their police department what they want. It's not my police department, it's their police department, it's the community's police department, and we're here for them. We're here to serve them. But as the role as the chief, it's my duty to move the department forward and continue to build strong partnerships with the community in the different segments of the community, and to make sure that our department is transparent, legitimate, and open with everybody.
Thank you. Can you please take 1 to 2 minutes and provide your definition of community policing?
Sure. So community policing is all about fostering partnerships with stakeholders and the community to reduce the fear of crime, solve problems, and understand the community's needs. So, you know, we look at community policing and we say, oh, we can do this and we can do this and do non-law enforcement roles. But when it all boils down to, those are all avenues that the police department can take to, you know, reducing fear of crime, solving problems, and understanding the community's needs. And as a police department, we can certainly, and we will, provide community policing initiatives to build trust, legitimacy, and understanding within our traditional roles of law enforcement, as well as our non-traditional roles. So community policing, which I'm responsible for in the town of Wayland, you know, we do a lot of things that are non-traditional roles. We have popsicles, you know, Pops with Cops. So we go to the town beach with popsicles and we sit with the kids and we talk with their moms and dads and we talk to them, and they see police officers who are in uniform or are in detectives or not wearing uniforms, and we talk to them about anything that they have as issues. And that's just one thing. I mean, we do a lot of things. We do Coffee with Cops, Citizens Police Academies, RAD, which is a Rape Aggression Defense Program that we teach all 11th grade girls in high school, self-defense programs. We expanded that to adult RAD, so where we go into the community and teach adult women in the community about self-defense, and it gives them obviously a better self-awareness and understanding about what they can do to protect themselves. We've initiated the Silver Alert program, which helps people with Alzheimer's and cognitive issues that tend to wander from their residences, and we're able to work with their families and work with them and provide information about should they go missing or wander off from where they live. We're able to have their information and we can broadcast out to the public so that we increase the chance of finding someone safely. Those are just some of the community policing initiatives that we do.
Thank you. Can you please identify, based upon your knowledge of our town and its demographics, the program areas you would focus on, and describe how you would intend to undertake the tasks of a new chief during your first 6 months on the job?
So that's a lot to obviously get involved in the first 6 months, but certainly necessary. So during my first 6 months, I would integrate myself within the community. And that, I think, is one of the most important things that I can do. And I will work cooperatively with everyone that I meet. I had a chief years ago that had said to me, you need to make a friend every day. And, back then we kind of looked at him and kind of laughed and chuckled to ourselves. But as you get a little more experience within your career and you understand a little bit more about policing and people, he was 100% right. It's, especially as the chief of police, it's our job to meet the community and be there for them. And it's, if it's meeting somebody and becoming friendly with a new person every day, that's exactly what, I need to do. Some of the things that I would do is certainly expand the role of community policing within the town. And I know within the past few months that has certainly occurred, and I would continue that. It's important to showcase the town's police department, the town's equipment, the town's officers, so people understand that, police officers are people, they're doing an important job within the community. And it's important for the people in the community to understand what their police department does in the town of Dalton, not just, what they see on the news or in the paper, that type of thing. So in the first 6 months, I would certainly have a Citizens Police Academy. And I would certainly, hopefully, work with the senior center on providing the space to make that happen, because I understand that the police department isn't an adequate space to have a Citizens Police Academy. But I think the Citizens Police Academy is the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak, because it gives the opportunity for the police department to showcase their officers, teaching the classes to the community. It showcases the equipment that the townspeople have purchased through their budget. And it showcases the officers, their personalities, who they are, what they're all about. I mean, everybody sees a police officer in a uniform and, a shiny badge and a gun and that type of thing. But when it comes down to it, we're all people too, whether people believe that or not. And we have personalities one way or the other. And I would certainly work with the CRA on non-law enforcement type thing, issues. And currently now in our middle school, we go out and we have pizza. We serve them pizza on a daily, like a quarterly thing where we go and we bring pizza in and we sit down with the students, we give them pizza and we talk to them as, cops to kids type of thing. And I would certainly do that as well there, including, working with the CRA and playing dodgeball and games and reading to students. I mean, that's what police officers do in our non-traditional roles. So, and as part of what we do now, we reach out to every segment of the community. So working with our seniors and providing fraud talks and preventing them from being victims of crime, as well as giving them, social media classes on how to utilize social media as well. As we get a little older, myself included, I have to refer back down to my son, who now teaches me how to use certain things on my phone. And I think that's important for us to do. And prevention of fraud and with our seniors is extremely important. The adults in the community, the Citizens Police Academy is a great class for everybody within the town, from students up to seniors. But it really is geared towards the adults in the community. And again, we reach out through social media platforms. And I know the Dalton Police Department has expanded their social media platforms, and it's a great way to showcase the police department. And by doing that, we kind of dictate and show our police department in various ways through photographs or stories or helping the public about road closures and things like that. And town-wide, I would certainly do a law enforcement open house, which would be open to the public, where the community can come in and look at the police department and see our cruisers and meet our officers. And then, we gain knowledge from the community, and they get to meet, the police officers in town. So I think that would be a good start for the first 6 months as far as our community policing initiatives.
Thank you. Can you please tell us about a time when you used your leadership position to strengthen police and community relations?
Sure. So again, we're kind of in an open session here, so I don't want to give too much away, but a few years ago, we had an individual in the town of Wayland that was not anti-police, but certainly questioned everything that the police did. And so the chief and we were ramping up our fall season of community policing initiatives, where we had a Citizens Police Academy. We invited this individual to come to the Citizens Police Academy, which was an 8-week class, and it ranged from everything from criminal law, constitutional law, to providing a ride-along to the community members that were involved in the program. As well as we took them shooting, they got to fire a firearm, that type of thing. So this individual came into our class kind of skeptical of the police. He went through the 8-week class, and at the end of the class, although he may have been a little less skeptical, he certainly understood where the police department came from, why we did what we did, and he certainly understood how we function and why we function. And again, he still may be a little skeptical of the police, but certainly the positive interaction that we had on a weekly basis with him, he was able to go out in the community and certainly talk very highly of the police department, even though he may still be a little skeptical of us, but he was certainly understanding of how and why we did certain things.
Thank you. We've got one final question here. Can you please take 1 to 2 minutes and provide your understanding of police reform for the state of Massachusetts? And in this, can you describe 1 or 2 significant changes as a result of the police reform for a police department the size of Dalton?
Sure. So police reform in Massachusetts is obviously to reduce or remove structural racism. And those key words, hold law enforcement accountable with the Black and Latino communities, and to establish a police officer standards and training. So of the 50 states in the country, 46 of them already have post standards. Massachusetts was not one of them. We will be now, and that just provides us greater responsibility for our law enforcement partners within the 351 towns in the Commonwealth. And as far as significant changes for the town of Dalton, what I see being as of issues. Qualified immunity, which is personal liability for police officers while they're working on the job, and should they commit errors or have issues that come up legally, they can be held liable in their qualified immunity, which makes them more liable now, would certainly be come into play. It diminishes the pool of candidates because of backgrounds and people who actually want to be police officers now. And in a smaller community such as Dalton, although civil service, the pool of candidates that there is to draw from for especially smaller communities, or people that want to work in smaller communities, is a lot smaller. You may be able to, have a list of individuals that would want a job as a police officer, but when a job such maybe in a smaller community comes up, they may not want to work in a smaller community because of what in a larger community they may not have as many eyes on them, or the training might not be as good, and it all depends on. But in Dalton, it's a smaller community, so you might have a smaller draw of individuals, as well as Dalton has part-time officers. And those part-time officers will need to be made whole and brought up to full-time police officer training standards. So if you're a full-time officer or a part-time officer, it doesn't matter the amount of hours you work, you're still going to need the same amount of training. And so to bridge that gap now, those part-time officers are going to need to be brought up to the higher level of training, which is obviously a cost to the town, and the ability to get those officers trained, and they may not want to be full-time police officers or have to go through the amount of training that is necessary to have that training. They just want them to be a part-time officer. So it's going to be some give and take, and as this law comes into effect, police departments throughout the Commonwealth are going to have to figure out how they're going to manage it on a budget, in a budget way as well. So it's going to be difficult, especially for smaller communities.
Thank you, Detective Berger.
You all set, Dan?
Yeah. Over
Yeah.
to me now. Yeah.
Okay, Joe.
Hey, Detective Berger, nice to see you again. And had the pleasure of giving you the 25-cent tour of Dalton when you came out for the chief assessment. So first question I have for you, Jamie, is what will be your biggest challenge in making the transition to the police chief here in Dalton?
So I think my biggest challenge would be in coming to the community, would be immersing myself into the community, within the community, and being accepted by the community. And I think that's, in essence, I'm an outsider, and I understand that. I may have a little funny accent from being out east a little bit. However, I think just involving myself into the community is my number one goal. And as the next police chief, should I be selected, I'm going to immerse myself in the community. I'm going to, go to the businesses, talk to the business owners, walk the streets, talk to people so they understand who I am and how I can help them. And I think that's, the biggest challenge that I'm going to have is to get out there and to meet people.
Yeah, well, just one thing on that East Coast accent, it never goes away. I've been here for 15 years and it's still there. So So next question I have for you, Detective, is as the police chief of the town of Dalton, you're going to be in a very unique position to influence and rebuild of the police department for many years to come. So what would be your three main goals in your new position if so selected?
So one would be to update all the policies and procedures to accreditation standards. And although the department might not be able to be accredited, our policies and rules and regulations will all be, up to that standard. So that would be one of my goals. Another goal would be to work with the town, the police department, and the union to facilitate a mental health wellness program. And I would work cooperatively with them. Mental health wellness with police officers is huge right now. And it's extreme. Police officers on a daily basis see everything bad in the world, from car accident victims to deceased individuals to someone whose house got broken into. We see it, and it's important for us to deal with that. And I think that developing a mental health wellness program is essential for police officers. And when I first started in a career, police officers go through medical and a psychological exam, and we go through those types of things. And then as your career progresses and you see things, nothing really happens. Although in the recent years, police departments have made mandatory trainings, and when you see something, like a horrific murder scene, it's important to send officers for mental health wellness checks. And I would work with the town, with the union, and with the officers to make sure that we install that in the Dalton Police Department and for the town. And it's not only good for the police officers, but it's great for the town, because you have officers that, need and would want to be well, and it reduces suicides, it reduces alcoholism and drug abuse, and it's certainly a needed thing in law enforcement. And another goal I would have is to transform the agency from where it is to a truly community-oriented policing agency. And we would have highly engaged, motivated police officers that are employed by the town. And it starts with the chief and rolls down through the supervisors down to the patrol officers. As the chief of police, I'm not going to ask an officer to go out and change a tire of somebody who has a flat tire if I'm not willing to do it myself. I lead by example, and I would expect officers from myself down to go out and help people, and that's what we're here for. This is not an us versus them anymore. We're guardians of our communities, and we're here to help, and that's what police officers are nowadays.
Great, thank you for that. One thing I forgot to put on this list is really just a question for you to ask us questions. So take a few minutes, and you have the full select board here, minus one member that recuse himself. But any questions that you have for us, Jamie?
So as the hiring authority, what are you looking for from your next police chief?
Mr. Chairman, would you like to take that?
Go ahead, Joe. I'll let you handle that one. You're into this.
Well, it is a leader for community police and someone that has the foresight of the changes that are coming down the pipeline for police reform. I think there's going to be significant changes for our department, our model, the way that we address the resource needs as now going to be dictated by police reform. And someone that is able to mentor our team. We have a lot of young officers. We have a very good, strong sergeant level with long-standing officers. We've had a high turnover rate, in my opinion. We've got to look at some data there. Why, it's like you train officers and then they leave for other departments, whether it be pay or something else. But I think the leadership in the chief position can help settle that down, or make some recommendations to the town manager about what programs to put in place to minimize that churn. And also just strong program and financial management at the end of the day. We are, as every town, trying to manage those dollars as tightly as possible, but also as efficiently as possible to make sure we're safe and we have the right programs out there. But a chief that can, also lead and guide us into what's the right thing to do for our community from a police and standard perspective.
Sure.
So those are just some general comments, but I'd love to turn it over to the board. I've been engaged in this since day one as far as the recruitment process and everything else. But Mr. Boyle or Mr. Esco, any additional thoughts or comments?
Joe, I think you touched on a very important issue, that currently the existing police department in Dalton is extraordinarily divided and into factions, so to speak. And they're very resentful at this time of what has happened in the past, without dwelling on it. And what would you do to bring the department together to act as a unifying force and regain the department's respect for the select board?
You asking me?
Yes.
So I think communication, I've touched on this in different segments of this process, but I think communication is key. And, when you don't communicate, people start to their thoughts wander about what's going on within not only the agency, but in the town. And I think that, I think I've touched on it here, that effective communication will be the hallmark of my tenure as the chief. And open, honest communication is what stunts and prevents a lot of people's thoughts and worries from occurring. And I think as long as you communicate effectively, from the chief down through the supervisors and through the patrol officers, everybody can be on the same page. And I've been in departments, or my department, I've dealt with chiefs who communicate well, and I've dealt with chiefs who may not have communicated so well. And I've seen both parts of it, and I understand how important it is for a chief to communicate effectively. And I understand how important it is to get the word through the department. And whether it's, email or sitting down and talking to the union e-board, or sitting down with the supervisors, or opening up the office to anybody to come in and sit down and discuss whatever it is that is the issue. Open, effective communication prevents issues like this. So I think, I understand that there's some divisiveness going on, but certainly as a leader, it would be my job to get everybody back on the same page, and I would 100% make that happen.
Just one final question from me. Do you think us out here in Western Massachusetts have an accent?
I think everybody has an accent. When I went to college in Vermont, all my Vermont friends have accents as well. So my father, who lives in Florida, he has an accent, a Southern accent now, and so I hope if I get the position, I will lose a little bit of my Eastern accent, but
no, it's nothing dramatic compared to South Boston, believe me.
So,
yeah, barely noticeable.
Thank you.
Mr. Esco, anything to add to Jamie's question about what we're looking for?
I think it's been said. Your points were well taken. I think the need for a unified department with fresh leadership is incredibly important. And I really think that should be a huge priority among the other priorities: community policing, statewide police reform, and implementing that in our department. So that's about all I can add.
Yeah.
Chairman?
I'd just like to add one thing. Jamie, I like your idea of engaging the community. One of the biggest things in the department is gaining community trust. And I think your plan is really good. Do you want to add to that in any shape or form? Because I think that's the key, because there's sometimes people that just don't trust the police department.
Right, and as the police chief, I would kind of seek out those people that don't trust the police, and I would sit down and talk with them, whether it's over a cup of coffee, invite them into the office, sit down. It might be a group of people. I can meet with them at the senior center or the CRA, and we can discuss why they don't trust the police. And I understand that not everybody trusts the police, and the different segments of the community might not. But it's up to me as the chief and the officers that work for the Dalton Police Department to gain their trust however we can. And, that kind of leads me, I'm very passionate about police work. I love doing police work. I love investigating crimes, and I like helping the community. Community policing is my niche. I just, since my involvement in the Detective Division Commander for the last 14 years, that's my niche. I make programs happen within our community, and we reach out and we work with the different segments of community, and every segment that we reach out to absolutely loves the police department, and if they don't, we turn their ways around, and they see why and how we do things and understand a little bit better. And that's what it comes down to, is understanding. And the police department, we're not always seen as the good people on TV or in the news or things like that. But, 99.9% of all police officers are out there trying to do the good thing for the right reasons. And I think that's what we're here for. And, again, that's community policing is my niche. I absolutely love to do it. I'm not sure if I can move this into the closing segment, or you want me to stop, but
yeah, go right ahead. 2 to 3 minutes for your closing.
So, I'm very positive about police work, passionate. I continue to do police work now. In 2019, I was nominated and selected to receive the Irish American Police Officers Association's Award for Investigations. I'm not even Irish, but they gave me an award. It's for an extensive investigation that I did in 2019 that went through Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, and it recovered over $100,000 worth of assets that were stolen through different communities. And again, like my years of training, education, and experience have made me ready for this position. I'm, ready to be a police chief. I've taken that next step. I want to be the police chief here in Dalton, and I look forward to moving there, be immersing myself into the community, owning a house there, being part of the community, shopping in the community, and making the police department better for the community and the town. And we work together cooperatively to do that. I have a vision to make the police department a community-oriented policing agency, and provide the best possible policing that we can for the community with what we have. And that's the vision. We can do that together. And that's what I imagine to happen.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Jamie. It's been a pleasure going through this process and having you come to the finalist stage. And our next step is to discuss amongst the board on Thursday evening and then make a determination. And we'll keep you posted. But with that, I just also want to say I've learned a lot about you and your what you've accomplished in your career, and I just want to congratulate you on that and for this great service you delivered to the town of Wayland.
Thank you.
Police officer, and a lot of respect for your role, your position, and your background and experience. So again, thank you. Mr. Chairman, any other closing comments?
Nope, but I really appreciate you coming in, Jamie, and well, like Joe said, we're going to discuss this on Thursday, and I'd like to thank you for applying once again, and we have a beautiful town here, and what we want to do is select the right person for the job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Brittany, you should see the next candidate should be probably in the waiting room by now. I gave him a heads up that we were running a little bit early.
I'll leave it out.
Yeah, you're all set, Jamie. Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Yep. Good night.
Yes, right there.
Here he is. Thank you, Brittany.
Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, Captain Durskin. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you, sir?
Good. Can you hear us okay and see us okay? All the
Yep.
Zoom kind of checks? Awesome. Okay. Great. To the board, I'd just like to introduce our next candidate, Captain Robert Durskin from Cortland, New York, captain of the Cortland County Sheriff's Department. And Rob, what we're going to do this evening is that you have the list of questions in advance, like all the other candidates. And those questions have been assigned to different select board members to ask those questions. And so we'll start with our chairman, Mr. Bishop.
First of all, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for putting in for the police chief. My name is Bob Bishop. I'm the current chair of the Dalton Select Board. And I have to tell you quickly that my wife was born in Cortland, New York. And I'm not going to tell you what year because I'll be shot. And her grandparents lived in Homer. So I know the area quite well.
Yep.
Okay, please take 2 to 3 minutes for an opening statement.
Okay, again, my name is Rob Dirksen. I am married. I have 3 kids, 2 of my own and a stepdaughter. My stepdaughter's off and married and living on her own. My twins are 17 in their senior year of high school in Homer. And I've been at the Cortland County Sheriff's Office since August 28th of 2000. I was promoted to sergeant in 2006, uniform sergeant, and then uniform patrol lieutenant. So I was the division commander of the uniform division in 2009, and then captain in 2013. I'm also an FBI National Academy graduate. I was in 2012.
Okay. What attracted you to the position of the Dalton Police Chief?
Well, Joe Diver said you guys have like really tropical weather there in Dalton. I imagine you got pounded with snow like we did last week. We got about 3 feet where we are. So
just a dusting, Rob. Just a dusting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, love snow blowing twice a day. So basically, in order to continue my law enforcement career, I'm looking to retire from New York State, and unfortunately, in order to continue to do what I love, I need to leave the state of New York. It's just one of the restrictions that the state doesn't allow us to continue full-time in a law enforcement field after we retire. Obviously, I've got college to pay for twins, so that's one of my motivating factors. As far as Dalton specifically, I love the small town environment, the size. I actually grew up in Albany, New York, Colony, which is a suburb of Albany. So my mom and my sister are still in the Albany area, so this would actually put me a lot closer to them, which my sister is ecstatic about because, mom's getting up there in age and still lives in the house by herself and stuff, so she needs some attention, now and then. So like I said, it just puts me in that location. As far as size of department, Dalton's a nice size. I'm obviously at a very much larger department right now. We have 39 officers from the top to bottom. So this is just it checks all the boxes for me as far as location, size. Again, I'm familiar with Massachusetts. We used to vacation every year on Cape Cod my whole entire childhood. So like I said, it's just it feels right. It feels like a good fit.
Okay, thank you. What qualities and experiences do you have that would convince us that you would be a successful police chief?
Well, like I said, I've got not only extensive amount of supervisory experience. Obviously, I was first promoted to sergeant 14 years ago, but since 2009, I've been a lieutenant and then captain. I've overseen major investigations. Since I've been captain alone, I've directly supervised over 3 homicide investigations. Before that, in my younger days when I was just an officer, I was actually union president for 7 years. So I've got both perspectives of sitting on both sides of the table. I've been through arbitration hearings, termination hearings. Again, as captain, one of my primary functions right now is policy development, revamping our current policy. So I've actually rewritten the entire policy for the sheriff's office recently. It's going through review right now with the sheriff. As captain, I'm also the head of the internal affairs or professional standards. So I've got experience, doing internal investigations, discipline. And then also I've been very involved in the hiring process. Ever since I've been lieutenant, I've sat in on interviews and been, well, right now as captain again, the sheriff actually doesn't sit in on the interviews, so I'm the center of the hiring process, I guess, right now at the sheriff's office for the road patrol. And of course, budget development, as well as just, community involvement.
Okay, thank you. All right, describe your general management style regarding these areas and provide examples of how you would collaborate with each. The town manager and department heads, and then the select board, employee relations, and community relations.
Okay, well, I'm going to start by kind of umbrellaing them all together, and then I'll break it down each one individually.
Hey, what do you want?
I very much, for all of them, it's all appropriate. As far as you have to be an active listener, you've got to listen to the issues that each one of those folks may have, and it's just important that people know that you're willing to listen to what they've got to say, and you're going to take it into account. There's that saying: if you want to get respect, you got to give respect. So. And then I'm very much a collaborative person. I'm a talker. I like to talk my way through things. I like to think my way through things. So as far as, the town manager, you know, they're kind of the president of the company. They're doing the day-to-day operations. Obviously, I'm going to be working hand in hand with your new town manager from what I read in the papers. And, you know, the select board is like the board of directors. They're the ones that are picking policy and doing the budget development and stuff like that. So it's attending select board meetings. Like I said, meeting with the town manager. As far as department heads within the town, you know, every department head is going to play a collaborative effort with the police department. You know, even if it's the fire department, obviously is an easy one, but even DPW or Office of the Agent or social services, there's always the intertwined reliance on each other. Like I said, even for like employee relation, I'm a very collaborative person. I like to talk to my officers. I like to talk to my supervisors and just listen to what they have to say and bounce ideas off of them. Community relations, I work for a sheriff's office, so you know, my boss is elected. If I want my boss to continue to get elected, obviously community relations is very important to us. We're a customer service industry. I've got to serve my customer base, you know, and make sure that I'm providing them the service that they desire.
Thank you. Okay, what core values do you rely on when facing difficult professional decisions on the job? And can you give us an example or two?
Sure. As far as a lot of it is, you know, it relies on right now, or I rely on my experience. 20 years of law enforcement experience, and obviously quite a bit as a supervisor, and then, you know, then as a further beyond a supervisor, but as a police administrator. I'm a very compassionate person. I'm a very empathetic person. I often will put myself in that person's shoes, or at least try to. You know, you got to look at it that people are capable of anything, you know, given a situation and a circumstance. So even myself could have been in the same situation that person was in, because look, none of us are perfect. We all have our flaws. So again, I like to kind of, you know, in my own mind, put myself in that situation and try to understand where that person may have been coming from, what they were thinking. And a lot of it is based on, you know, my moral compass, you know, the right and wrong that I was brought up with, you know, throughout my life.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn you over to Mr. Boyle right now. John, you're up.
Good evening, Captain, and welcome to Dalton. Even if it's only by Zoom, we appreciate it. I have a few quick questions. The town of Dalton has experienced significant change in the police department, and town management in 2020. This includes the separation of the police chief, termination of an officer, retirement of the town manager. What specific actions will you take to instill a cooperative effort in an agency experiencing significant change?
And that's a great question, because you guys are definitely experiencing change. I mean, like I said, I've tried to follow in the press with some of the things that are going on with Dalton. Obviously, the press has a very limited view of you folks know a lot more than and what the press reveals. You know, and you know, it's my understanding you've got an internal candidate right now, but you've also had officers within that department that wrote a letter to you folks endorsing another person, another sergeant within the department. So those types of things, I mean, those are relationships that are going to have to be built on and potentially smooth over. If I were to get the position, not only do I have to address essentially both internal candidates, even though the one might not have been a true internal candidate, I've got two people right off the bat that think they should have been in my shoes, and that's going to take some work. So a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, again, that active listening that shows that, look, I understand. Maybe if you know, this is truly where you want to be as far as a chief someday, maybe we could work together to get you there. I could give you some tips and discuss things that might get you to achieve your goals.
was listening to your response. Sorry.
Fine.
Okay. How will you incorporate the command staff into your management team?
Okay, so it's my understanding that I'll have 3 sergeants. Even in my current department, we have monthly sergeants meetings where the lieutenant and myself, we meet with the sergeants, we go over everything. Again, I'm a very hands-on, supervisor or administrator. I actually attend briefings twice a day, the morning briefing and the afternoon briefing with the officers and with the sergeants. So they know that I'm there, and if they have any questions of me, if anything comes up as far as, a policy question, or they're having an issue with something in the county or whatever, they ask me and I give my input, obviously. So very much my sergeants, I rely on them. It's got to be a collaborative effort. There has to be that unity of command. We all have to be on the same page, because if they don't buy into what I'm selling, then they're just gonna dilute my message to the officer, and it's gonna get corrupted. So I need us all together on this.
Okay. Thank you. Earlier on, you briefly mentioned budgeting as, I assume, part and parcel of your supervisory duties. And the question would be, please share your experience with budget management.
So in 2009, when I was the Road Patrol Division Commander, the division commanders for either the Road Patrol or the CID Division, the Criminal Investigation Division, they submit budget proposals, like wish lists, basically. And then it's the job of the captain as well as the sheriff. We have management meetings and we discuss. So right now the Road Patrol's got about a $4 million budget for the sheriff's office, and then there's another $600,000 to $700,000 for our civil division, which is now has actually officers assigned to it, which are under my command. So like I said, I'm very much part of that budget process, development of that, $4.7 million. I have experience. I do fleet management. I do the department purchasing for the most part. Any major purchases from the department makes, I actually am the one that makes them. And I actually, since 2009, I've managed the department grants. So I've been pretty successful with some of the grants. A lot of them is state money, but I've gotten some really nice equipment for the department and some really nice funding for the department through grants.
I'm just curious though.
Just one other thing, would it be correct to say that you oversaw and developed the financial plan of a $5 million operation?
Yeah.
Yes? We lost our sound?
Oh, Rob, you still there? Oh, he's still there. Yep. So just to double check, we got the answer on that, right, John? $5 million?
I think
Is that correct,
maybe
Rob?
we should ask again. I don't know. We've lost communications here or not, Joe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just shy of 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Captain.
Okay, over the Dan.
Good evening, Captain Durskin. Thank you so much for attending the Zoom interview with the Select Board. I have some questions that are going to be focused on community policing and police reform.
Okay.
From your perspective, what is the role of the Chief of Police in our community?
Well, the police chief is one of the visible leaders of the community, especially in time of crisis. Anything, safety related, people are going to look to the police chief to be that spokesman, that figurehead. As far as, the everyday role of the chief is to maintain the high standards of the police department that community demands. I mean, we want our officers to be the absolute best that they can be. Obviously, officers are human beings, but at the same time, we want to build that culture that they understand, like I spoke of earlier, that it's very much a customer service industry, and they need the community support just as much as the community needs them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Could you also please take 1 to 2 minutes to provide your definition of community policing.
Okay, so the textbook definition would be organizational strategies, to develop partnerships for the purpose of problem solving. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means that, again, like I spoke of, that relationship between the police department and the community is very much symbiotic. Both of them rely on each other. They need each other to survive. They need each other to, sustain. So it's all about finding out what the community needs, what their expectations for the police department are, and building that trust, building those relationships with the community. The community has to feel comfortable that they know that, look, one is I can approach the police department or the police chief or an officer of the department, it doesn't matter, and I'm comfortable with that, and I know that the end result is going to be what it should be, that it's going to be a positive interaction. A lot of that is done with, community outreach is not necessarily traditional police work, it's going out and doing additional programs. We have a whole host of programs at the sheriff's office. I mean, like child ID cards. We participate in dunk booths at the fair. Anything, again, to do that outreach. Coffee with a cop, Cops on Top for the Special Olympics. We do softball tournaments. Everything, all those little things add up because the people that meet you in those, relaxed interactions or whatever are comfortable. They're going to not necessarily know me as chief. They might just know me as Rob, and approach me and feel comfortable talking to me. And then with that, builds that bank of trust, and it helps me because they may provide me with information of something that's going on in the town or crimes that have taken place or information, regarding narcotics activity and things like that. So like I said, it's very much relying on each other.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Could you please identify, based upon your knowledge of our town and its demographics, the program areas you would focus on and describe how you would intend to undertake the tasks of a new chief during your first 6 months on the job?
Well, based on when I did the meet and greet after the assessment, the groups that were present were the groups that I would probably initially focus on, meaning the seniors. We have a lot of different senior programs at the sheriff's office that, if they're not already in Dalton, it's certainly something I would love to bring into, such as Project Lifesaver, which helps, track people like dementia or Alzheimer's patients that tend to wander. The Yellow Dot program is just a system of first responders being able to locate medical information either in the glove box of a car if they see that yellow dot on a window, or if they see the yellow dot on the front door of a house, they go to the freezer. But again, it's a way for information gathering there to make sure that the proper medical attention is being provided to that person. The next group, obviously, you've got a elementary school, a middle school, and a high school in the town of Dalton, as well as you've got St. Agnes, which is obviously, a private school. Schools are an intricate part. Most of our residents are probably parents or alumni of those schools. So again, those are a group that I'm going to focus in on, reach out. I've taught numerous classes in schools, whether it be to kids about internet safety or parents about social media and internet safety. I've taught all of our local schools, with the exception of one, but the city police handles that here in Cortland. The active shooter response for the teachers and the staff. Some schools have had me every year for 4 or 5 years in a row teach that course. So again, those are kind of two of the initial groups, and then the other first responders, the fire department. Look, when I'm at a scene, I need the fire department. I need their cooperation, and so building that trust, that relationship, as well as any other EMS, ambulance services and stuff like that. So those would be the kind of 3 core groups that I would initially focus on.
Thank you. Could you please tell us about a time when you used your leadership position to strengthen police and community relations?
Well, basically, you know, every day since I've been captain, but I can give you a specific example. Probably the most prominent example is I am a certified teacher in teaching that citizens response to active shooter events. And in that, I've taught it at several local churches, the schools that I spoke of, businesses. We've held public events at one of our local museums, a couple of the public libraries. Again, several companies have had me in for their annual training. So in that, it allows them to not only learn something from the class, but that they get the sense and get the opportunity to know me. I'm a very, you know, Zoom doesn't do it justice. I'm a very, you know, animated person and stuff like that. And I teach the class very, very lively. So again, now people go out of there going, yeah, I know Rob Dirksen. He taught me this class. It was a great class. And again, it's building that relationship and that trust and that comfort level.
Great, thank you so much. One more question. If you could just please take 1 to 2 minutes and provide your understanding of police reform for the state of Massachusetts, and then describe 1 or 2 significant changes as a result of police reform for the department the size of Dalton.
Okay, so most states, including New York, are going through obviously some pretty significant police reform. I've read, you know, several articles as well as the actual legislative document there for Massachusetts to kind of break down what Massachusetts is looking at as far as the police reform. A lot of the reforms, like banning chokeholds, most police departments anywhere where I'm from, they've banned chokeholds for my career. So you know, or duty to intervene. Those have already been things that have been integrated in policies and practices in law enforcement for quite some time. As far as specifically, you know, what probably 2 areas are going to impact Dalton the most is, it's my understanding Massachusetts is going to revamp their certification process, have a statewide certification process. And I know we talked about during the assessment portion of the hiring process that could have an impact on the town's reliance on reserve officers or part-time officers. So that could make it either more difficult to have reserve officers, or certainly more difficult for those reserve officers to meet the criteria. And then probably the next one that I see is the state is doing a study or a consideration of doing a statewide body cam usage, either policy or mandate. And we don't currently use body cams at the sheriff's office. One of my tasks is I've done a project development a couple times now, as far as we've done T&E, test and evaluation of some of the body cams. But what people don't realize is the financial impact of body cameras. Not only are you buying the equipment, which could run you between $1,000 to $1,500 per camera, that's not even the expensive part. The expensive part is data storage. You know, you're talking 8 hours of camera footage per officer, you know, 24/7, and it's high def video. It eats up a lot of data storage. And if you were to do it on the local level for the sheriff's office here, just the initial server for us would have been $25,000 just to house storage, and that would be a very finite thing that eventually would fill up, and we'd have to buy more storage space. The other option would be cloud-based storage, but now you're paying a company to store your data. If they should have a security breach, now your potentially confidential evidentiary police videos could be released when they weren't supposed to be released. And then it is just the staff hours of having to review, copy, and provide, you know, copies of those videos to the prosecutors for cases and stuff like that. So it is a huge financial undertaking for any body camera program.
Captain.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Captain, over to me now. Again, hope to wish that we could meet in person, but everything's been Zoom, so thank you for your patience through the whole process, for sure. And I hope the dogs are doing well, by the way, too. So.
Oh yeah, they're
Yep. There you go. So, Captain, what will be your greatest challenge in making the transition to the police chief for Dalton, if so selected?
Well, obviously the layup is getting to know the officers and developing those relationships. You know, there's going to be a level of trust that has to be earned. But as far as I've done that for 20 years, I've built relationships, so I'm fairly confident in that. The biggest challenge that I view, like for my, that I see is the transition from New York to Massachusetts. Although the states are very similar, it's still just learning, for all intents and purposes, I'm an expert on, New York civil service and New York laws and case laws. And it's just making that transition. Obviously, though, there's people that do it all the time. Police chiefs come from all over the country all the time. And it's the unknown. So right now, that's kind of the mountain that's in front of me, but I'm confident that I can climb it.
Thank you. And then, as a police chief for the town of Dalton, you're going to be in a unique position to influence the rebuild of the department for many years to come. What would be your three main goals in that new position?
So my three main goals that I thought about was, one, the first and foremost is officer development, and that means not only training, but again, the officers buying into that culture, that they know what my expectations are, they know what the town's expectations are, and they're willing to buy in, and we do individual effort for that common goal. Two would be making sure that the officers have the best possible equipment and resources that they can get within, obviously, the budget that I'm given. Again, and that may entail me trying to find other funding sources with the board's permission. If you're willing to let me beg, I'll go beg. I'm not proud. I'll find the money somewhere if I have to, if I think the program or that equipment is vital to the success of the department and the safety of the officers. And then lastly, just the community relations. One of my big challenges, or things that, regardless if I was coming from Massachusetts or if I was being promoted, to sheriff here in Cortland, would be to just build those relationships in the community, those groups, reaching out to those groups. Hopefully COVID will end at some point and we'll get to see people face to face again and shake hands and do all that stuff and break bread with them and things like that. But those are the things I need to just build that trust with not only the community but the officers themselves.
Great, thank you. Before I go to the next question, which is the final kind of closing, what questions do you have for the select board? You have all the members here minus one who recused himself from the process, but any question that you have on top of mind for the select board?
Well, as far as in your email, or I think I read it in the newspaper article, that Thursday's kind of the potentially the decision day. Is that still a timeline that you're shooting? Obviously, it's not cemented, but
no, it is. Yeah, we'll be doing that Thursday. Yeah. Okay.
So obviously, if I'm selected, if I'm fortunate enough to be selected, then I will have a lot more questions. As far as, because then the first thing I would want to do is let's meet in person. Let's I want to see the town. I want to tour the PD and I want to get going on this. And start making plans. So that would be, like I said, if I were fortunate to be selected, then that would be my next step, and then the questions will come rolling.
Yeah, I think that'd just be a courteous move to do, no question, because you have to be a little bit more familiar to get here or see the place, walk around the town and have the 25-cent tour that I gave to another candidate as well who was able to make it out here. So absolutely. And then it would be pending any type of contract negotiations, et cetera. And then whatever transition plan, I'm sure you have to, if selected, to transition on your end too with the sheriff's department. So we would navigate all that down the road. Yeah.
So, like I said, that's really it. It all, I guess, hinges on Thursday, and then we'll go from there. So,
Okay, great. Before we get to the close, and any follow-up questions from any board members for any answers we've heard? All right. Captain, why don't you go ahead and take 2 to 3 minutes and for a closing statement?
again, and I know you folks, you don't know me personally. Hopefully I left somewhat of a good impression throughout the process, but I am confident that, if I advance in the process, as you look further into me, as you talk to other people, obviously I'm going to have a biased opinion of myself. You're only going to be further encouraged that you've just scratched the surface of who I am as a person and who I am as a police administrator. Like I said, I've got 14 years experience as a supervisor, but I've got 11 years as a police administrator. And if, for those of you who have, some background in law enforcement or familiarity with law enforcement, the difference between a supervisor and an administrator, it's a huge leap. I've got, 2 sergeants that were sergeants many years that just made a lieutenant last year. And they come in my office every day just shaking their head saying, I had no idea, wow, I had no idea, so like I said, I truly, I'm confident in my abilities and my experience, and, I'm confident if I'm fortunate to be selected, you won't be disappointed.
Great. Well, thank you, Captain. And just a couple of closing comments on my side. The committee and I have had the great opportunity to get to know you, learn more about you. And, any type of Google search certainly shows the level of commitment you have in the community that you serve, and the great stories that are out there. And so thank you for the service that you deliver to your county of Portland. And and Bob knows that area very well, as he mentioned earlier. And it does get warmer in Dalton, by the way, Captain. So there are about 4 or 5 days in the summer. So, but with that, I just want to say again, thank you, and I will be in touch after the decisions on Thursday and loop back. But Mr. Chairman, any additional comments or questions?
No, thank you again, and we can't thank you enough. And like Joe said, we're sorry you have to do this by Zoom, because I'd like to see people face to face, and this is the best we can do under these circumstances. But good luck, and you've answered the questions well, and we will get back to you on Thursday, okay?
All right, I appreciate the opportunity, folks. Thank you. Very nice meeting you.
Yep. Thanks, Captain.
Thank you, Captain Doris.
Good, Captain.
Good night.
Bye.
Brittany, if you can check the waiting room, I think our next candidate might be logging in.
Alrighty, I'm on the lookout.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, would you like to take a 2 or 5 minute break here at all? Anybody need a...
Why don't we take a couple-minute break?
Okay.
She just joined in.
Okay.
I'll mute myself for 3.
Are we taking a 2-minute break, or are we going to
Take a 2 minute break. Hey, Sergeant Shaw, we're just going to take 2 minute break and we'll be right with you. So.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and congratulations on making it through this process here where we are tonight. So you have the list of questions that all the candidates received in advance.
Yes.
So we've taken those questions and we've kind of segmented them in different sections, and each member of the select board will go ahead and ask you those questions. So with that, I'll hand it over to the chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, congratulations, Deanna. Okay, please take 1 to 2 minutes for an opening statement.
So hi everyone, my name is Deanna Stroh. I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit of background about myself. I wanted to be a police officer since I was 5 years old. It never changed, it never wavered. It was just who I was from a very young age. I credit and also blame my Uncle George, who was a police officer here in Dalton for 30 years, George Wendling. I kind of laugh about wanting to be a police officer for so long because, people ask you, oh, why'd you want to be a police officer? And, most people say, oh, I want to be a police officer because I like to help people and I want to catch bad guys. And the honest answer, when I was a little kid, my Uncle George used to have lunch with me every single day. And when he left, every day he would say goodbye to me over that PA system in the cruiser. So our family joke is I want to be a police officer because I loved his PA system so much in his police car. I was a Dalton Police Explorer from the age of 13 until I went to college. So I've basically grown up here on the Dalton Police Department. And I have now been on the department 23 years. I spent at least 10 of those years as the senior officer on my shift, and I was responsible for making decisions as the senior officer. 2 years I was a corporal and also included making decisions on my shift and being an on-call supervisor. And then I was promoted to sergeant, and I'm currently assigned as the day shift sergeant. So I'll give you a little background on my education. I have a master's degree in criminal justice, and then in 2018, I had this relentless urge to go back to school. I really can't tell you why or how, but so I went back to school and I got a second master's degree in public administration with a concentration in criminal justice administration. And essentially what that degree is it focuses on leadership and management style and specifically geared to municipal employees. And just a little bit about my personal life. I am married to a Pittsfield police officer. I feel sorry for our children. 2 police officers for parents is probably rough on them. We have 3 children. Paxton's a senior at Wacona, Evan's a sophomore at Wacona, and Cameron is in 5th grade at Craneville. And I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, probably also why I'm a police officer. And then I have my dad and his wife live nearby. So it's a little bit about my life that you may not have known about.
All right, thank you, Deanna. Okay, what attracted you to the position of Dalton Police Chief?
So ironically, this was not an easy decision for me to apply for this job. Chief Riello came here, and with him, he brought this enormous positive change with he had this infectious positive attitude when he got here, and he breathed such life back into our department again. And I decided that motivated me to want to continue that momentum and move our department forward. I live here, I work here, I grew up here, and I love our department and our community. I have the leadership skills to, and I have great relationships with our community, and it's going to move us forward in a great direction. And I know our officers. They're intelligent, they're motivated, they're great people. And with a leader who promotes ideas and growth and transparency, we can do great things here, and we can build some really great relationships in our community.
All right. What qualities and experience do you have that would convince us that you'd be a successful police chief?
The qualities I have is I'm definitely an excellent communicator. Some people may say I talk a lot, but I don't think so. I'm a great listener, which is really important when you're in a supervisory role, to listen to those around you. I think outside the box for solutions to problems, and I have the ability to work with absolutely anyone and collaborate as a team. And I can see both sides of all the issues. And my favorite skill is I'm very approachable. I treat people with respect and empathy, and I have a lot of integrity. As for my experience, I have 23 years as a problem solver in our community. I'm the go-to person for a lot of people here, both in our department and outside our department. And I've led intensive investigations that, with local, state, federal levels, and I'm leaned on as a leader in our department and counted on to make good decisions.
Okay. Okay, describe your general management style regarding these areas and provide examples of how you would collaborate with each one. The town manager / department heads, select board members, employee relations, and community relations.
So as for a leadership style, I rely on situational leadership. And what I mean by that is you have to be flexible when you're a leader. And someone's not muted. So you have to be flexible when you're a leader. And what I mean by that is you have to, the primary style of leadership here is to be inclusive and work together as a team and be able to communicate well back and forth with both our supervisors and our officers and have their input on decisions. But there are times in policing when we face crisis and we have to take a stand and make those decisions. And that's where our flexibility as leadership comes in, when you have to come in and make those decisions and be the leader. And as for the town manager, that would be someone that I would work with on a daily basis. Good communication every day, let him know what's going on. Department heads, it's really exciting to be a part of the Dalton management team. An example of how I would work with them is just the other day when we called a snow emergency. I actually called John Ruffley first, and I touched base with him to get his input to see how long we needed to give them the time that they needed to clean up and get their work done, because we didn't want to cut it too short, because if we cut it too short, they wouldn't have, all the cars wouldn't be off the road for them. So it was nice just being able to work with John and get his input and make sure we did that properly. And as for the select board, I am a huge believer in communication and letting the select board know what's going on as it's going on. Mr. Bishop, I called you last week and let you know that there was a pretty big fire and we had a road closure, because I think it's important. You guys are all a huge part, as well as the town manager of our town. And it's important for you guys to be on the same page. If something's going on, you need to know about it in real time, not reading about it in the paper the next day. And one of the other things that I would like to do with the select board is I would want the sergeants to give me a monthly report of a shift report, so they could tell me what's going on their shifts, traffic stops, crashes, arrests, the types of issues they're dealing with per shift. And then I would like to present that to the select board once a month, so you guys know monthly, month to month, what's going on in the police department, what type of issues are we seeing in our community. Because again, you guys are serving an important role. It's important that you know everything that's going on with us. And then as for employee communication, inclusiveness, treating people equally and fairly with accountability for all, and that builds trust in your leadership. So when you're giving the equal accountability, everybody knows that there's equalness going on and not, different treatment for different officers. It starts to build that trust back that we need. And as for the community side, just letting people know that we're here, they're valued and heard. And, by being approachable and available to our community members, I think that's a great start for us to, figure out what's going on around us and make sure we know and we can help with that.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, what core values do you rely on when facing difficult professional decisions on the job? And can you give us a couple examples?
Sure. My two core values that I probably lean on the most is integrity and empathy. And I do find myself blessed when I tell you that I absolutely love people. And the 23 years in law enforcement has done nothing to diminish that for me at all. I love everybody. I'm always out in our businesses and stopping and talking to anyone and everyone who will actually have a conversation with me. I enjoy it because it helps us know what's going on. And, we get a lot of information from people, because sometimes it's really scary and intimidating for people to call the police department or come to the police department. And, if we're out and about and, leading by example and being out there and showing, hey, let's talk to everybody, let's find out what's going on, it really lessens that fear and intimidation factor for people. In integrity, I pride myself on being able to do the right thing when it's the hard thing, and the right thing when it's the unpopular thing. And, I think in this last year, I've definitely stepped up to the plate by doing the right thing when it's the unpopular thing.
Awesome. Okay, those are the end of my questions, and I'll turn you over to Mr. Boyle. Is John there?
John's on mute. Hold on, Mr. Boyle, you're on mute, sir.
Coming.
I'm sure he's asking a great question. Well, you're on mute, sir.
I clicked X to unmute him, so.
Okay. Not yet, no.
John, unmute yourself.
He's trying.
There you
There
go.
you go.
We all set now?
All
You
set.
got it, kid.
All
There
right.
you go.
I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. All right. Deanna, as you know, the town of Dalton has experienced significant change in the department and town management in 2020. This includes a separation with the police chief, termination of an officer, retirement of the town manager. What specific actions would you take to instill a cooperative effort in an agency experiencing significant change?
So I think the first step in a process like this is you meet individually with every officer in the department, and you get input from each of them on where we are and where they think we need to be. And back in September, when Chief Riello first came to our department, he got us into this fantastic training. And we worked together and developed a new mission statement and a vision statement and core values. And we worked together as a team to do that. So we really got to see what everyone thought. And it was just really amazing to hear the input of all of our officers and what they thought we should be doing. So that would be the first step, meeting with each officer and finding out their input. So we already know we have a shared vision and a common goal because we just developed that. I absolutely believe in teamwork, communication, and showing them that they're appreciated and valued member of our team. This is a team. This is not a dictatorship. We have to work together to be absolutely successful. And, I know our officers. I know their unique needs. Everybody's at a different skill level. We have a lot of young officers here, but they're fantastic. And, I know what their skill level is and how to motivate them.
Thank you. Secondly, how will you incorporate the command staff into your management team?
So, as you know, we now have 3 sergeants, which is absolutely fantastic. We have a day shift, 3 to 11, and a midnight sergeant right now. And what I would do with the shift commanders, as I've already mentioned about the reports that I would require them to submit by the end of each month, just so we can stay on top of each shift. And if there's things that we need to be a little bit more proactive on, we'll know that because we're going to be able to develop that data and pattern by those reports. We would hold monthly meetings together, and I would empower them with the tools and resources they need to be successful on their shift. And they're going to mentor our officers. That's really what their goal is. They're going to be a coach and empower them to make good decisions. Our sergeants are smart people, and they're just very experienced police officers.
Good. Thank you. And one final question. Could you please share your experience with budget management with us?
Sure. So I've been introduced into the crash course of Dalton Police Department budgeting. I know that we have a line item budget. I know that 95% of our budget is salary. And we're pretty bare bones. We don't have a lot of room because we've been level funded for so many years. We have a line item budget. Salary, like I said, is 95%, and that increases based on union, non-union negotiated raises. And then everything else is based on the year before. And I'm familiar with last year's budget. I've reviewed it. And like I said, I've been working with Chief Riello and our administrative assistant, Rebecca Whitaker, on developing the fiscal year 2022. So I'm pretty familiar with it at this point with the numbers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You all set, John?
Yes.
Okay, Dan, you're up, kid.
Thank you, Sergeant Strout, for making it to the final round of interviews and for your time with the Select Board this evening. I'm going to ask you a few questions that are going to be focused on community policing and police reform. From your perspective, what is the role of the Chief of Police in our community?
So the Chief of Police is essentially the leader of the police department, but the role in the community, I would like to see the Chief of Police out of the office, working on partnerships with the CRA, business leaders, the senior center, and being approachable and available. I think it's so important to build those relationships in our community, and it's something that I've done for 23 years, and I don't think I could walk into a business and not know everyone. It's just something I've prided myself on my entire career. There's not a business here that I can't walk in and know people, or neighborhoods, and it's just really important to me to know people around me, and that way they feel comfortable. And when they're familiar with you, it just develops a great relationship where they're comfortable to come talk to you and let you know if there's a problem. Because like I said, some people get nervous coming to the police department, and if they know you're going to pop into their business and say hello, then they're really comfortable saying, hey, this customer has been a little weird, can you check on them, something like that. So that's kind of the role, is just being out there, being available. And that's just for the community side. That's not really the police part, but I think that's what you wanted to know, right? The community part.
Thank you very much. Can you now please take 1 to 2 minutes and provide your definition of community policing?
Sure. So community policing to me it's really high quality policing. It builds partnerships with our community. And it comes in many forms. We could talk about the Coffee with a Cop. We've just utilized our Facebook page that I oversee, and we have about 4 officers on the department that are having an absolute blast with it. And I've been doing the officer spotlight every couple of weeks. I pick an officer. Basically, I draw straws, and they really love it. They really don't, but they're getting used to it. And I introduce them to our community because, again, I hear so many people in our community saying, I really don't know the officers anymore. And so it's important that they know that we are humans, that a lot of us live in this community. We work here. We grew up here. So it's important to me that we get, that engagement flowing. We need to be a part of our community. We could talk about neighborhood watches. I would love to do a citizen police academy. And I know watching some of the town manager interviews, he did a type of town government academy. We could put hand in hand some government and police academies. That would be a pretty good collaboration. I would love that. But I think, community policing, it's what I've done my entire career before I even really knew that's what I was doing. Because without our community supporting us and being our eyes and ears out there, we don't have success here.
Thank you very much. Could you please identify, based on your knowledge of our town and its demographics, program areas you would focus on, and describe how you would intend to undertake the tasks of the new chief during your first 6 months on the job?
So our demographics in Dalton, to the best of my knowledge, is about 30% of our population is age 65 and over. We had a pretty decent involvement in the Triad program. For anyone who doesn't know what Triad is, we work in collaboration with the Senior Center, the District Attorney's Office, the Berkshire County Sheriff's Department, and the Police Department. And we would have monthly meetings. And once this COVID is behind us, and I'm optimistic it will be, I would like to really ramp that up and get more involved with the Senior Center, because Triad's amazing and monthly meetings are great. But I would like, I was talking to some people from the Senior Center recently, and I said, what would you guys like to see from the police department? And they said, just stop in when there's cars here, come in and visit. And I think that is so powerful to just to be able to stop in, and it doesn't have to be a formal event or a meeting. And I know like a couple years ago, they would let me come in there and play cribbage with some of the Senior Center people. I will admit to you, I did beat them, but they beat me pretty bad. And I think some of them were cheating, but I still, it was really so much fun, playing cribbage and getting to hear these stories from our seniors, because they're just amazing people. And I think they really enjoyed it. I certainly did. I've stolen Officer Derby from Pittsfield's Copsicle truck, and he let me use it and bring it up here. And I drove it all around Dalton to the parks, and it happened to be graduation season, so we had a bunch of graduation parties. Those are just things that we can, Pittsfield PD is exceptionally helpful, and they let us use their truck. And, there's lots of things that we can do, but like I said, engaging with our senior population is huge because it's 30% of our population. I coach a lot of youth sports. I absolutely love the CRA. I'm there all the time. So, and I'd love to work with them and maybe develop some youth programs as well. So there's lots of stuff that I think we can do to get ourselves involved. And as for, I think you asked about tasks of the chief for the first 6 months, lead by example. I never expect anyone to do something that I don't do. And if I'm out there talking to everyone, I'm hopeful that I can get everyone else convinced to do the same. It's actually rewarding, and you feel like you're really having a positive impact on your community. And clear communication is number one with a supervisor or anybody. If you have good communication skills and people have a clear expectation of what you're looking for. And I just was in a training, and one of the things they said is people do what you inspect, not what you expect. So if you stay on top of what you're asking people, you really, really can make some great progress here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you please tell us about a time when you used your leadership position to strengthen police and community relations?
Yes, this is actually pretty recent. Pittsfield had some robberies that took place over several hours. It was like 4 or 5 robberies. And they had put out a public description of the person and their vehicle. So, I was working with my partner, and I talked to him and I go, hey, what do you think? Let's go tell all the businesses about these robberies. And he's like, yeah, great. So we went to all of our local businesses and we touched base with everyone and said, hey, listen, this is what's going on. There's some, we gave them the description of the person, what the vehicle looked like, because being proactive on that, first of all, it keeps them safe because they know to be kind of on their toes and be alert. for anything suspicious. And I said to one of the girls, I think it was at Cumberland Farms, I said to her, I don't care if you call 911 10 times and you're wrong 10 times. We are still going to be there and we're happy to be there. But this is how we can all work together, is by getting that information out proactively. And that's what I decided to do that day. And we've had a ton of positive feedback from our business, both employees and owners, that they really appreciated the communication, because I think it helped make them feel safe. You know, they knew what the risk was, and they knew what the description, and they knew that they could call us and we would be there in a second. So I think that was good.
Thank you. And finally, if you can please take 1 to 2 minutes and provide your understanding of police reform for the state of Massachusetts, and describe 1 or 2 significant changes as a result of the police reform for the department in Dalton.
So the Police Reform Act was signed into law by Governor Baker on December 31st. There's a timeline for implemented changes. Like specifically December 31st, we had to have all discipline records are now public information for law enforcement. We have, there are like bias-free policing policies. It's a lot of updated policies and basically going through and looking at your policies and adapting to these best practices. We need to adopt an anti-retaliation policy because with the use of force changes, what they're doing now is if an officer engages in excessive force and another officer witnesses that officer is required to report that to the department. So we have to implement a way for an officer to report that to us, and also an anti-retaliatory policy so that they can do what they're supposed to do and report it and not feel that they're being retaliated against for doing the right thing. We also have to adopt a facial recognition policy. It's a lot of policy implementation and it's all different timelines. There's also the issue of certification. So we have currently 5 reserve officers in the Dalton Police Department. What they're doing now with this reform bill is they're trying to raise the level of training for reserve officers. There is a lot of misinformation out there. I actually have the latest from the Mass Chiefs right now that I've reviewed over the last couple of days. So they're just trying to raise the level. They're not actually making them full-time certified officers. It's not to the extent of what we initially thought it was, but we're gonna have to raise their level. It's never a bad thing. Anything that makes us adhere to the best practices and standards is where we want to be. This is, some people look at the reform bill as a bad thing. It's really not. It's going to hold us all accountable and make us do a great job. So I think we need to welcome that and look at it in that positive view and get our policies up to where they need to be.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Straub.
You are welcome.
Hey, Joe.
And over to me from off mute. Yep. Hey, again, congratulations, Sergeant Strout, for making it to the final round here. So a couple of questions related to the transition to the police chief position if so selected. What will be your greatest challenge in making the transition to the police chief?
So I think the obvious, most difficult transition is anytime you are a patrolman and you get promoted to a supervisory role and then from supervisor to chief, that's always a transition within your department. And, the best way you can do it is with clear expectations, clear communication, and just, reassure everybody that we're a good team here. We're going to work together and, just have that open back and forth. It's an open door policy. And just like I said, that's definitely a transition, and that's going to be something that we're going to work on all together. The other challenge for me, I will say there's 2. I absolutely love working in patrol. I love going on calls. I love problem solving. But I've been told by a very wise man that I may still be able to do that sometimes. So, that's one of the things. I just love doing police work so much. So it's just a transition to more of a leadership managerial role. So that's a big transition for me.
And next is, as a police chief of the town of Dalton, you will be in a unique position to influence the rebuilding of the police department for many years to come. What would be your 3 main goals in your new role, if so selected?
So I'd like to create that culture of community policing and engagements. Like I said, it's something I've been doing my entire career, just building those relationships and making the culture in our department want to do the same and motivating them to want to do the same. Creating a positive work environment by recognizing good work and working with our command staff to also recognize good work and just reward that great behavior, because when you're rewarding good behavior, they're just keep doing more good behavior. It's how that works. And another part of that, creating that positive work environment is officer wellness. This has been an interest or love of mine for a really long time. I did my thesis and my master's degree on the impact of critical incident stress in law enforcement many years ago. And I'm currently certified. I work for the Western Mass Critical Incident Stress Debriefing Team. It is so important, and I tell our officers often that we all have buckets and they all fill. And you have to know when your bucket is filling. We see tough things out here, we really do. And I know it's Dalton and people may not think that, but I promise you we do. And we just have to really take care of ourselves and self-wellness and just, it's important. And I think setting that culture that mental health is acceptable, we need it. We need to be okay, not only physically, but mentally. And then the biggest thing I would also like to do is just a top to bottom review of our policy and procedures. We are probably going to be having to get certified and accredited in the very near future. So it's a great jumpstart to really review our policies and get them up to par and making sure that we're adhering to the best practices that we can be and doing the right thing and just being where we need to be.
Thank you. Well, the one question that's not on our list is, do you have any questions for the select board?
Well, we always have questions for the select board. We always do. What are you looking for in a police chief?
Mr. Chairman, would you like to take that, or?
No, go ahead and do your answer, Joe. You're good at
I
that.
forgot what my answer was last time, so I'll try to do it again. So, but this one of the other candidates asked the very similar question. So, certainly the selection committee had a strong focus on community police and having a leader to be able to develop those programs and be innovative in how we do that differently. And the other is a leader that has the foresight and leadership and the ability to mentor our young officers through the significant change of police reform. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean for the short term, long term, and be able to help us through those changes and what are the financial impacts along the way, and together figure that out, right, and see what the right programs are. Certainly, community engagement is a key element of our police department, and it's as you know, and as everybody on this Zoom call knows, it's a quiet, relatively quiet most of the time, but sometimes there's needs to take those action and that leadership to make sure we have the right procedures in place to respond and et cetera. So it's kind of the 60,000 foot view, but I probably missed something. So I'll turn it over to other select board members to also add comments. Mr. Boyle or Mr. Esco?
Yeah, Dan?
So I answered that correctly, guys?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just checking.
John, did you have anything to add, or?
No, go ahead, Dan.
Well, just to pick, I'll agree with the points made by Mr. Diver. I will also add, I think we're really looking for a leader who can unify the department and put the past behind us and move forward with a bold new vision for the department and for the town. That's incredibly important. So someone who can build the trust quickly amongst the team members and the officers and the trust of the community as well, and really just put our best foot forward and put kind of the problematic issues of the 2020 challenges we had in the department behind us.
I'd just like to add too, to keep the communications open with the town manager and everything. If things starting to actually have little problems, not become big problems. So open communications with not only the select board and the town manager, but department heads or anybody, even your own officers and stuff. So that's my saying. So keep the little problems little and let's help them out. And I like the idea of the wellness of the policemen. They face tough decisions every day, and to keep somebody out there, we need to support their well-being. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's actually going to be part of the reform bill. It's just to be determined on when that happens. But I've always been a big fighter for having it mandatory that we have to participate in debriefings because I think it's that important. So I was thrilled to actually go through these reform bills and see that it's a to be determined, but it looks like it's going to have to be added into our policies. So, that's a huge victory for all of us, really. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited about that.
Great. Well, Sergeant Sherwood, would you like to take a 2 to 3 minutes for a closing statement?
Sure. So I really thank everyone. This has been an incredible process. It's just been I've learned a lot actually about myself in this process. I've done this job for 23 years here, and I love my department. I love this community, and I've shown care and concern for our people and our officers. I am really excited to shift our direction of our department toward community policing, toward technology and collaboration. Berkshire County is an amazing place, and to be able to work with our county agencies, and I have such a great relationship already, and I know a lot of our officers do as well. And I'm really excited about the partnerships, and in looking at mental health clinicians and maybe trying to regionalize some resources and getting a mental health clinician to be able to respond to calls when we need them to, and pooling our resources together to try to do that. I mean, they're, in addition to an officer, I mean, that is an absolute win for everybody. I have built many positive relationships here within our department and outside of our department, our community. The Chief of Police in Dalton is a very important role. It guides our young officers forward, and it serves our community, and that's really what we're here for. I can't stress enough about leading by example, and I agree with Mr. Esco when he says we need to move ourselves forward. We really do. It's been a rough year here, and I'm super excited to move us forward and work together and be able to build that bridge that we need with our community and with ourselves. And we need to continue to improve our department every day. And when, I think it was you, Mr. Bishop, you said, getting in front of those small problems before they're big problems, it is absolutely enormous to me. And just being on top of everything and communicating. And I think that's where we're going to be successful, is just having that great relationship moving forward. So I thank you all so very much for the opportunity. It's been amazing. Like I said, very much learning experience for myself as well. So thank you all so much.
Great. And again, congratulations for making it to this stage. And on behalf of the selection committee, we learned so much about you and all the other candidates. And thank you for hanging in there during the Zoom process, all these different things, and the very thorough process that our consultant, Mr. Sampson, brought us through this process. So again, thank you. And thank you on behalf of the Select Board. Thank you for your continued service to the town of Dalton. Very much appreciated. So
thank you.
Any other comments, gentlemen?
Nope, I'd just like to thank all three candidates, and Thursday will be the time when we put everything together and hopefully move forward with our new chief. And I can't say enough about this town. We do need to move forward, so that's what we need.
If there's no other business, Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make a motion to adjourn for this evening, and we'll come back on Thursday.
Okay. Just before we close, I'd like to thank everybody, the Select Board members, and everybody else that participated in this. And I really thank you all for your time. And this is an important decision. So, guys, do our homework over the next day or so, and then we'll get back on Thursday. And I'll take a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Good night, Dalton. Thank you.